Okay, so I am going to go over for day 27, which is in week 14, the progress I've made towards the items that I've laid out. Okay, so if you missed the video last week, I'm going to actually make sure I post it into week 13 classwork. But if you want to look at in more detail how I implemented Firebase login and setup, you and the present user specific data, and then handle user specific data capture, which was only one item, but at least it did that. So I handled that all in last week's week 13 video. But I do actually need to put it into the item, and I'm going to do that this time to make sure, because some people were asking me where it was. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is a reminder that you need to be placing your progress write-ups right here, and they need to be substantive, meaning you need to have some specifics about what you're doing and what you're running into and help that you're seeking, and just where your code, the state of your code, so that when I go look at it and run it, if there's errors and you know about it, I'm a little more understanding than not reporting them on your progress file. Okay, all right, so what I'm going to show you today is my implementation of form validation. Now, what we were seeing last week in the Firebase implementation was once you called the authentication methods, there was console messages coming back. And so what I've done here is I've captured the console messages into the page, so that's server-side validation. And I've also done client-side validation so that before the user ever hits anything on the server side, we've validated that they have good input. Okay, so let me show you that. So here's my app as it exists right now. So a couple things is that you'll notice as it comes into the page that the focus is placed on the item that I want them to start with. And there's also some nice messages there. Fill out the form, and notice that the one in red is invalid, meaning it doesn't have valid content yet. So let me just show you. If I start typing an email and or anything, and I hit tab, which is focus out, I get a message, can you try that again, which is a 2-second message, and then it clears the field. And I'll show you how I did that. I thought I was pretty happy with the way that was. So then if I let's do this. I think this is the one I already have. Okay, I hit tab. Now in this field, if I hit tab, password has to be at least 6 characters. Okay, so those are 2 pieces of client-side validation that I've done. Okay, I hit tab. Now I can actually log in. Okay, so now I get my login, and so now it's actually going out to do my user specific kind of fake data function here. But I did add also a menu specific to my user, right? So that's the other thing I'm going to start working on here. So let me go ahead and log out so that you can just see this. Okay, so this was a really fun thing to implement, and let me show you how I did it. First, let me just show you, let me bring in my code. Was there something else I wanted to show you here? Oh, the validation also works on my getting started. So if I was to do a new email, let's say this, let me actually do a new account. Okay, and then I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to say getting started. So in this case, this is also required. It has to be filled out. Okay, and oh, I actually can change this to where it has focus, and I need to do that. So then I can say right here, and then actually I need to change that the tab order if I can on that. But these are just things that I'm seeing. So then I complete the process, and then it logs me in. Cool. And then it's running my stuff. Okay, so I'm validating, and I didn't actually show you the validation on that, but I'll show you the content that comes back, or the way I handled it. Okay, so let me move over to my code real quick and show you what I did. As I'm coming back up here, I added 2 new, that's my menu function. So what I did is I added, let me find them right here, they are. Oh, I ended up moving them. That's right. I couldn't remember where I put them. So I added 2 new event listeners. So text, email, add event listener. So on focus out. So that means when somebody tries to leave the field itself, then I do some error checking. So I did some research yesterday. Spent a lot of the day really looking at kind of the best practices and trying to find a good way to do this. And I found on MDN there's a text email validity type mismatch. And basically what this is doing a fairly simple but at least a pass through on the way the format of the email is done, and is does it match the email. Now in this case I actually had to make sure, if you didn't, on your email input, that you have type email for that to work. Okay, so I did that, and then what I said here is I said, or if it's blank, right? So in either case, I want you to throw an error. In this case, it's saying error. Now, let me show you what error is. First, let me show you in the code. So what I did is I placed a span, or a div, down underneath my user, my email and password. I gave it an ID of error message, and then in my iffy for this, I created a new, where's it at? Here it is, error, and I said document get element by error message, so then I could just, whenever I want to update that area, and I used it somewhere else, so I'll show you that in a minute. But in the validation of the two fields, like event listeners on those two fields, then I said error.innerHTML. Can you please try that again? And then I put focus back on the field, and then I set a timeout. Okay, and so this is that error message shows up for a few seconds. I could change, maybe I would actually increase that to like 3. Then I'd make the message go away, and then I would make whatever they typed in the text value go away. All right, so that's how I handled the email. And there are many different ways to do this. There are regular expressions you can do this with. So in this case, I so that's how I handled the email. And then on the password, I did a similar thing where I added an event listener for focus out. And then I used, and by the way, these arrow functions are just a shorter way to express a function expression. But it's so it's very, just makes your code smaller. There are other benefits we will definitely talk about. So in this case, all I was asking is the length, right? Is less than, if it was less than 7, then throw that error. And the same concept here, which is that put that focus back on there and then clear that error message. So that's how I handled those two messages. Now the other thing that I did is I handled the server messages in this way. So on my sign up, and also on my, let's see the other one. Yeah, both of them. So on my login and on my button sign up event listeners, on the, when the promise, after you send the email and password to authenticate or to create the user account or to log in, then what I did here is I created a block of code on the error message, and then I just did the same concept, but in this case I just said the event, the result of that, place it in the inner HTML, and again after a few seconds make that go away. So I handled both the server side and the client side as far as the error messages similarly, and I felt like it was a nice cleaner way to do that. Okay, so you can see that here on the login you can get that as well. So if you want to see that functionality, so let me log out. So in this case, if I was to say, give it an email I know doesn't exist, right? Let's just say here. Okay, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. What, it doesn't matter. Okay, it has to be very nice. See, my validation's working. Okay, so I hit tab, and then I'm actually going to sign in. So this is that user. Oh, and it went away pretty quickly, but sign in again, right? So there's no user record corresponding to the ID. I can see just by doing this, again, this is the idea of leading into user testing, why that's nice to maybe have that hang out for a few more seconds so the user can see that, right? So I'm really pretty happy with the way this turned out. It was really fun to implement. It really tested some of my skill, which was great. So that's what you need to be working towards. Let's see, did I not, is there anything I didn't cover here? I didn't cover the database site, because I talked about that last time. And I don't think I changed any of my logic. Oh, I might have changed something. No, I still have this. Oh, I ended up console logging because I was trying to find an error. I may have I changed some of the logic on the way my authentication on auth state changed a little bit, just to get it to work the way I wanted it to. Other than that, this is my implementation of those ideas. Okay, so the last thing I want to say is that in class we talked about this, so I want to give you the heads up and offer this to anyone that happens to not be showing up in class because of their own schedules or whatever their choices are. So we're off week after next for Thanksgiving. And then coming into December, oh, by the way, this is not our class. There's our class. Okay, so our last item is falling on Thursday the 8th. And then we're going to have, we decided that on the 15th, at our normal class time at 3 o'clock, we're going to have a pizza party and a demo day. Okay, so I'm actually really open to a conversation here to anybody that is has fallen behind and wants to maybe talk to me about ways we can help you get through this class by making sure you focused on. So anyway, here's the thing: demo day. So pizza day, I'm going to bring pizza. Some people might bring some other stuff, but we're going to have 3 o'clock in the afternoon on December 15th. We're going to have a demo day. And then what you'll need to have done is actually turned in any work late that you want me to grade on by the 14th, so that I can submit grades. Okay, so just keep this stuff in mind as you're moving through. As we head into the backside, last part of the semester. Okay. All right, let me go back over here and see if there was anything I needed to do. I don't think so. I think that was most of it. So I will say this now that I think about it. I have talked to the students in class, so I think it's worth telling anybody that happens to be checking this video out is that homeworks are back on on the schedule of needing to be done before the class starts on the corresponding days. So, homework needs to be done before you come to class on Tuesday or before class starts at 3, and then on Thursday again before class starts. But I am going to give a little more time on the class works themselves. So what I said to everyone was, as an example, for the week that just is ending, I will grade classwork for 25 and classwork for 27 on Monday, okay, of this week. So you have through the weekend to work on this stuff, and I will grade it at that time. Okay, so I'm not going to change the due dates. I'm just giving you guys and gals the heads up. So awesome. All right, hope you have a wonderful Saturday. Oh, the last thing I didn't show, let me show this too, is that I did ended up, besides the focus, and I did end up, and let me show you in the CSS, is I added, again, based on the MDN article, just a really simple input valid. If it's invalid, you put a red around it, and if it's valid, right, and these are just like pseudo classes on the input, you can make it green. So I think what that means here, if I do a correctly formatted, yeah, so then that turns green. So that's cool. That's a fun way to do it, so that it's just another what we call visual enhancement or cue to the user about what's going on. All right, have a wonderful weekend. Talk to you next week.